My name is Isabella Martinez, and at my sister's wedding reception, she grabbed the microphone during her maid of honor speech and said, "I want to thank everyone who believed in me when others didn't. At least I'm not a failure like some people in my family who can't even keep a job." She looked directly at me while saying it. I was sitting there in my $40 thrift store dress, the unemployed sister who'd been between jobs for 3 months while she was marrying a successful investment banker. What nobody knew was that hidden in my purse was a signed contract that would change everything. 1 hour later, my phone rang during the father-daughter dance. My soon-to-be former boss's voice cut through the wedding music. "Isabella, I know it's Saturday night, but I couldn't wait until Monday. The board just voted unanimously you're our new CEO. The position comes with a $400,000 salary, equity worth tens of millions, and you'll be the youngest female CEO in our industry's history." The silence that followed as I put the call on speaker was deafening. My family's faces went from smug superiority to complete shock as they realized the failure had just become more successful than everyone in that ballroom combined. If you're watching this, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story gets absolutely insane. Drop your location in the comments. I want to know where my fellow secret CEOs are watching from. This is about a family who spent years treating me like I couldn't succeed at anything, not knowing I was quietly building a tech empire that would make me one of the most powerful women in Silicon Valley. Growing up in the Martinez household meant living in the shadow of perfection. My older sister Valentina's perfection. Val was everything our immigrant parents had dreamed of when they sacrificed everything to come to America from Columbia. Straight A's through high school, full scholarship to NYU, MBA from Wharton, fast-track to partner at Goldman Sachs by age 28. She was the American dream personified, the daughter who validated every struggle our parents had endured. Then there was me. While Val was networking at business school mixers, I was coding in my dorm room. While she was climbing the corporate ladder on Wall Street, I was building apps that nobody understood. While she was making 6 figures in investment banking, I was jumping between tech startups that kept failing. Isabella sempre escoge el camino difícil, my mother would sigh to relatives. Why can't she get a stable job like Valentina? The family narrative was set in stone. Val was the success story. I was the cautionary tale. Every family gathering became a showcase for Val's latest promotion, while my computer projects were dismissed as hobbies. Technology is too unstable. My father would lecture. Valentina works with real money, real businesses. What do? Make phone games? The dismissal was constant and crushing. When Val bought her Manhattan penthouse, there was a family celebration. When I launched my first successful app, dinner conversation focused on Val's latest client acquisition. "Mia," my mother would say, "when are you going to get serious about your career? Valentina is building something real while you're playing with computers." What my family didn't understand was that I wasn't just playing with computers. I was systematically learning how to identify market gaps, build scalable technology solutions, and create products that millions of people would use daily. My journey started with a simple observation. Existing productivity apps were overcomplicated and user hostile, so I built FlowState, a minimalist task management app that used AI to predict user needs and streamline workflows. Within 6 months, FlowState had 100,000 users. Within a year, it had 2 million. Major corporations started licensing my technology for their internal operations. But when I tried to share the success with my family, it was met with polite confusion. "That's nice, Mia," my mother would say, before immediately pivoting to Val's latest Wall Street bonus. The real breakthrough came when Microsoft approached me about acquiring FlowState. Not just licensing, full acquisition for $50 million. But instead of selling, I used the leverage to secure $20 million in Series A funding and hired the best engineers money could buy. My company, Nexus Dynamics, became the fastest growing productivity software company in Silicon Valley. We were revolutionizing how Fortune 500 companies manage workflow optimization and I was personally responsible for technology that increased productivity by an average of 34% across our client base. At 29, I was managing a team of 150 engineers, had raised $100 million in funding, and was being courted by every major tech company with acquisition offers reaching into the hundreds of millions. My software was running on over 50 million devices worldwide, but when I tried to explain this to my family, they just heard app development and assumed I was making simple games for phones. Valentina's engagement to Marcus Wellington III was treated like a merger between two Fortune 500 companies. Marcus was everything our parents had dreamed of: Harvard MBA, managing director at Goldman Sachs, old money family with connections that opened every door. "This is what success looks like," my father said proudly while reviewing the wedding. Budget. Valentina chose a man who can provide stability and prestige. The wedding planning consumed every family conversation for 8 months, with my parents liquidating investments to create the perfect celebration. The guest list read like a who's who of Wall Street managing directors, hedge fund partners, and their accomplished spouses. "Isabella, you'll sit at table 12, my mother informed me while reviewing the seating chart, with some of Marcus's college friends. Try to make a good impression. Maybe one of them can help you find a real job." The dismissal was casual but devastating. Even at my sister's wedding, I was positioned as the family charity case who needed help finding employment. Meanwhile, I was in the final stages of negotiating the biggest deal in my company's history. Amazon had approached us about integrating Nexus Dynamics AI workflow technology into their entire corporate infrastructure, a deal worth $200 million over 5 years that would make us the dominant player in enterprise productivity software. "What exactly do you do for work again?" one of Val's Goldman Sachs colleagues asked me during the rehearsal dinner. "Valentina mentioned you're between jobs." "I run a software company," I explained. "We develop AI-powered productivity solutions for enterprise clients." "Oh, like making apps?" she replied with a patronizing smile. "That's single quotes S. creative. Have you considered something more stable like finance?" The conversation moved on to Val's latest deal structuring while I stood there. The family disappointment at my sister's celebration. 2 weeks before Val's wedding, my board of directors called an emergency meeting that would change everything. "Isabella," said Sarah Chan, our lead investor and former Google executive, "we've been watching your leadership closely. The Amazon deal proves you're ready for the next level." The offer was unprecedented. They wanted to remove our current CEO, David Kim, and install me as the youngest female CEO in enterprise software history. "The board voted unanimously," Sarah continued. "CEO position, $400,000 base salary plus equity. That could be worth $50 to $100 million when we IPO next year. You've built this company from the ground up. It's time you officially led it." There was just one complication. The board wanted to announce the transition at TechCrunch Disrupt the following week, which conflicted with Val's wedding. "I need an answer by Monday," Sarah said. "This opportunity represents everything you've worked for. Don't let anyone convince you that your vision isn't world-changing, because it absolutely is." That weekend, I agonized over the decision. Accept the CEO position and potentially miss my sister's wedding, confirming to my family that I really was the selfish failure they believed me to be, or turn down the opportunity of a lifetime to maintain family peace. I thought about all the times my achievements had been dismissed as computer games, all the conversations that had been redirected to Val's Wall Street success, all the ways I'd been made to feel like my path was somehow less valuable than traditional prestige. On Sunday night, I made my decision. I would attend the wedding, but I would also accept the CEO position. If my family couldn't value my success, at least I would stop hiding it from the world. Valentina's wedding was everything my parents had envisioned: elegant, expensive, and filled with New York's financial elite. The ceremony was held at the Plaza Hotel with 400 guests, including half of Wall Street's power players. I'd chosen a simple black dress from a thrift store, knowing that anything expensive would be criticized as inappropriate for someone who was unemployed. Even so, I overheard my aunt commenting, "Poor Isabella, she just can't seem to find her way like Valentina did." During the cocktail hour, I found myself relegated to conversations with distant relatives who asked the same patronizing questions. "So, Isabella, still looking for work? When are you going to get serious about your career like your sister?" The worst part was watching Val bask in well-deserved attention while simultaneously witnessing how my family positioned me as the cautionary tale, the daughter who had chosen an unstable path over financial security. Isabella's very creative. My mother would explain to guests, the word creative carrying an undertone of disappointment. She works with computers, but it's not really a career like Valentina's. My phone had been buzzing all day with messages from tech journalists wanting to confirm rumors about my CEO appointment, which had been leaked to industry publications that morning. TechCrunch had run a headline, "Nexus Dynamics founder Isabella Martinez set to become youngest female CEO in enterprise software." But I kept it silenced, not wanting to detract from Val's special day. The reception dinner was an exercise in endurance. I sat at my assigned table with Marcus's college friends, listening to toast after toast celebrating Val's achievements, her beauty, her perfect match with Marcus, her bright future in finance. Then Val herself took the microphone for what was supposed to be a thank you speech. Valentina stood up, absolutely radiant in her $15,000 Vera Wang gown, holding the microphone with the confidence of someone who never doubted her place in the world. "I want to thank everyone who made this magical day possible," she began, her voice carrying across the Plaza Hotel ballroom. "My parents, who sacrificed everything to give us opportunities in America. My colleagues from Goldman Sachs, who've become like family. Marcus's family, who welcomed me with open arms." I smiled and applauded, genuinely happy for my sister despite everything. "I also want to acknowledge my little sister Isabella," Val continued, and my heart lifted slightly. Maybe she would finally recognize my achievements. Isabella has always been different from our family. While I was building a career in finance, she was playing with computers. While I was learning about real business, she was, well, making phone apps or whatever it is she does. The crowd of Wall Street executives chuckled, and I felt my face begin to burn. I know some people might think she's going through a rough patch right now. She's been unemployed for months, but I want everyone to know that Isabella is very good at computer things. She's just never really figured out how to turn it into a real career. The laughter that followed was polite but devastating. 400 accomplished professionals absorbed the message that I was the family failure, the sister, who couldn't hold down a job. But I want to say that at least I'm not a failure like some people who can't even keep a job. Isabella, I hope my success inspires you to finally get serious about your future. I felt completely humiliated as guests turned to look at me with a mixture of pity and secondhand embarrassment. My parents were beaming proudly at Val, not seeming to notice how devastating her words were. That's when my phone rang in the moment of silence following Val's speech. Sarah Chun's ringtone cut through the air like a lightning bolt. Every head in the Plaza ballroom turned toward me as I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking with humiliation and rage. "I'm sorry," I mumbled, starting to decline the call. "Take it," Val said from the podium, her voice carrying across the quiet room. "It's probably someone offering you another temp job." More laughter! With 400 pairs of eyes on me and nowhere to hide, I answered the phone. "Isabella!" Sarah's voice was jubilant and loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "I know, it's Saturday night, but I couldn't wait until Monday. The board just made it official. You're our new CEO." My heart stopped. This was it, the moment that would change everything. "Sarah, I'm actually at my sister's wedding right now," I said quietly, trying to maintain some dignity. "Even better." "Put me on speaker. This news is too incredible to keep quiet, and your family should hear about this historic achievement." I looked around the silent ballroom. Val was still standing at the podium with the microphone, her confident expression beginning to falter. My parents looked confused. 400 guests were staring at me with growing curiosity. Are you sure? I asked Sarah, my voice barely audible. Isabella Martinez, you just became the youngest female CEO in enterprise software history, and your company's about to revolutionize how the world works. Put me on speaker right now. With trembling hands, I switched to speakerphone. Sarah's voice filled the Plaza Hotel ballroom. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Sarah Chun, former Google executive and lead investor at Nexus Dynamics. I'm calling to inform Isabella that she's just been appointed CEO of our company, making her the youngest female CEO in enterprise software history. The position comes with a $400,000 base salary, equity worth tens of millions, and she be leading the most innovative productivity software company in Silicon Valley. The silence was deafening. Val slowly lowered the microphone, her face cycling through confusion, shock, and something approaching awe. Isabella's AI-powered productivity platform serves over 50 million users worldwide and has just secured a $200 million partnership with Amazon. Her technology is revolutionizing how Fortune 500 companies operate, and she's personally responsible for increasing productivity by an average of 34% across our enterprise client base. I watched my parents' faces transform from confusion to stunned disbelief. I also want to mention that Isabella was just featured on the cover of Forbes as one of the most powerful women in tech under 30, and we're preparing for an IPO next year that could value her company at over $2 billion. She's not unemployed. She's building the future of work. Sarah paused, letting the words sink in. Isabella, you're not playing with computers. You're reshaping how the entire world approaches productivity and workflow optimization. We couldn't be prouder to have you leading our company into the future. When Sarah finally hung up, the Plaza Hotel ballroom remained silent for what felt like an eternity. 400 accomplished professionals stared at me. The family failure who had just been revealed as the most successful person in the room. Val slowly walked back to our table, still holding the microphone, her face pale. Isabella. I had no idea. Of course you didn't, I said, standing up for the first time in my life with complete confidence. None of you did, because none of you ever asked what I actually do. My mother was the first to speak. Mia, why didn't you tell us about any of this? I tried, I replied, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Every time I mentioned my work, you called it computer games. Every achievement was dismissed as less important than Val's Wall Street career. You made it clear that my success didn't matter to this family. My father looked stricken, but we thought you were just making phone apps. I'm running a company that serves 50 million users and partners with Amazon, I said calmly. I'm building technology that increases productivity for millions of workers worldwide. But you were so focused on traditional success that you couldn't see the value in what I was creating. The wedding guests were beginning to murmur among themselves, processing the dramatic reversal they had just witnessed. The woman who had been publicly humiliated minutes earlier was now revealed as the most accomplished person at the celebration. Marcus. Val's new husband was the first to speak from the wedding party table. Isabella, we had no idea. That's incredible. A $2 billion valuation? Projected, I said simply, based on our current growth trajectory and market position. Val finally found her voice. Isabella, I'm so sorry. I didn't know ... I thought you were struggling to find work. I haven't been unemployed, I said gently. I've been building a company. There's a difference. I turned to address the room, my voice carrying the confidence I had never allowed myself to show in front of my family. For those who don't know me well, I'm Isabella Martinez, CEO of Nexus Dynamics. We've revolutionized enterprise productivity. Software and serve clients including Amazon, Microsoft, and over 200 Fortune 500 companies. The room is completely silent now. I've raised over $100 million in venture capital, hold 12 patents in AI and machine learning, and employ over 150 engineers in Silicon Valley. I looked directly at Val. I suppose every family needs someone to show them what success looks like in the digital age. After the reception ended and most guests had left, my immediate family gathered in a private suite at the plaza. The atmosphere was tense, with Val still in her wedding dress and my parents looking shell-shocked. "Why didn't you tell us how successful you were?" my mother asked, her voice small. "I did tell you," I replied. "I told you about every milestone, every funding round, every major client. But you were so focused on Val's path that you couldn't see the value in mine. We thought you were just working on some computer project," my father said weakly. "I am working on a computer project. A computer project that's worth $2 billion and employs hundreds of people and serves millions of users worldwide." Val finally spoke up. "Isabella, I'm so sorry about what I said up there. I had no idea how accomplished you were. I should have asked more questions, should have supported you better." "You weren't malicious," I said honestly. "You were just reflecting the family's values. The problem wasn't you personally. It was the assumption that only traditional careers matter." My mother was crying now. "We just wanted stability for you. We thought finance, law, medicine, those were the safe paths." "Mom, I am stable," I said gently. "I'm more financially secure than anyone in this room. I'm building something that will outlast all of us. I'm creating jobs and solving problems for millions of people. Why wasn't that enough?" The question hung in the air because we all knew the answer. It wasn't about stability or success. It was about conformity to their vision of what achievement should look like. "What happens now?" my father asked. "Now I continue building my company without worrying about whether it meets your definition of success," I said. "I've spent too many years hiding my achievements because they didn't fit your expectations. Will you forgive us?" Val asked, her voice breaking. The question surprised me because it revealed how much she was finally understanding. "There's nothing to forgive," I said. "But there's a lot to learn. About my work, about the tech industry, about the fact that success comes in many forms." Marcus, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke up. "Isabella, I work with a lot of successful people on Wall Street, but what you've built, that's extraordinary. I'm sorry we didn't see it before." 6 months later, I was settled into my corner office on the 45th floor of a San Francisco skyscraper, overlooking Silicon Valley, where I was reshaping the future of work. My company had grown to 400 employees, and we had just announced our IPO filing with a projected valuation of $3.20 billion. The Forbes cover story had led to speaking engagements at the World Economic Forum, advisory positions with the White House, on technology policy and investment opportunities that were building generational wealth. I was literally changing how the world works, and finally, my family was beginning to understand what that meant. Val called me every week now, genuinely interested in my work and asking questions that showed she was trying to bridge our different worlds. She had started following tech news and would send me articles about AI developments, proud to tell her Wall Street colleagues that her sister was mentioned, alongside industry legends like Elon Musk and Sheryl Sandberg. "I saw you quoted in the Wall Street Journal about the future of remote work," she said during one call. "I didn't understand all the technical details, but I understood that you're changing how everyone works." My parents' transformation was slower but profound. They had framed the Forbes cover and displayed it prominently in their living room, right next to Val's Goldman Sachs award. My father had even started reading tech publications, trying to understand the industry that had made their daughter one of the most powerful women in Silicon Valley. "I saw an article about your company helping small businesses during the pandemic," he said during one of our weekly calls. "I finally understand you're not just making apps, you're helping people work better and live better." The breakthrough came when my mother visited me in San Francisco for the first time. Standing in my office, looking out at the tech campuses that were changing the world, she finally grasped the magnitude of what I had built. "Mia, I owe you the biggest apology of my life," she said quietly. "We were so focused on the success. We understood that we couldn't see the success you were creating." "You don't need to apologize for wanting what you thought was best," I replied. "You just need to understand that the world is changing, and the most important work often happens in ways you don't expect. Your abuela would be so proud, she sighed, tears in her eyes. She always said you had a special mind for seeing solutions others couldn't. That evening, we had dinner at a restaurant where the server recognized me from a recent TechCrunch interview. As my mother watched strangers treat me with the respect and recognition she had never shown, I saw her finally understand who I had become. I want to learn about your work, she said over dessert. Really learn, not just pretend to understand. Will you teach me about this world you've built? It was the first time in my life that my mother had asked me to teach her anything. On the 1-year anniversary of Val's wedding, our family gathered again, this time to celebrate my IPO and my engagement to David Park, a brilliant venture capitalist who had believed in my vision from the beginning. Val was there, now genuinely proud and supportive. When she raised her glass for a toast, her words were completely different from the year before. To my sister Isabella, she said, who taught our family that success comes in many forms. While I help wealthy people get wealthier, she's changing how millions of people work and live every day. As I looked around the table at my family, imperfect, learning, but finally seeing me for who I really was, I realized that the greatest victory wasn't proving them wrong. It was helping them understand that there was never anything wrong with my path in the first place. Sometimes the people who love you most are the ones who understand you least. But with patience, success, and one perfectly timed phone call, even the most traditional family can learn to see the value in a revolutionary dream. Have you ever felt dismissed by the people who were supposed to believe in you most? Sometimes our biggest supporters are the ones who never knew they needed to support us in the first place. Drop your stories in the comments below, and if this resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about building success on your own terms. Remember, your worth isn't determined by other people's ability to recognize it. Sometimes you have to succeed so loudly that they can't ignore you anymore. And sometimes all it takes is one phone call at a wedding to change everything forever.